Growing up, my family lived in a small house that bordered a dense forest. It wasn't a picturesque woodland with hiking trails and sunshine filtering through the trees. No, this forest was dark, tangled, and alive with an eerie stillness. Locals whispered about strange things happening there, disappearances, odd sightings, but we brushed it off as superstitious nonsense. When I was 12, my parents started letting me stay at home alone. I was mature for my age and I loved the independence, but deep down the isolation unnerved me. We didn't have neighbors nearby, and the only road was a narrow dirt path leading back to town. It felt like we were cut off from the rest of the world. One evening, my parents went out for dinner, leaving me home with my younger brother, Tommy. It was late autumn, and the sun dipped below the horizon quickly. By the time I finished making us dinner, the house was bathed in shadow. Tommy was glued to the TV in the living room while I was cleaning up in the kitchen. That's when I heard it, a faint, tapping sound. At first, I thought it was the wind. The kitchen window overlooked the backyard, and beyond that was the forest. I peered outside but couldn't see much beyond the glass. The tapping came again, rhythmic and deliberate. I leaned closer, squinting into the darkness. Then I saw it, a pale face pressed against the glass staring at me. Its eyes were wide, unblinking, and too large for a human. The face didn't move, but its presence sent a chill down my spine. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair, and when I looked again, it was gone. "Tommy!" I yelled, running into the living room. He turned to me with a startled expression, a half-eaten bag of chips in his lap. "What?" he said, annoyed. "Did you see someone outside?" He shook his head. "No, why?" I didn't want to scare him, so I just mumbled something about raccoons and sat down beside him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. About an hour later, Tommy fell asleep on the couch. I carried him to his room and tucked him in. Then I returned to the living room. The house felt too quiet. I turned on the TV to drown out the silence, but kept glancing out the windows, half expecting that face to reappear. It wasn't until I heard the creak on the back door that I froze. Our back door was old and heavy, and it always made a sound when it opened. I grabbed the closest thing I could find, a fireplace poker, and crept towards the kitchen. The door was ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. My heart pounded as I scanned the room, but nothing seemed out of place. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. No response. I locked the door and checked all of the windows, making sure everything was secure. Just as I started to calm down, a loud thump came from upstairs. My blood ran cold. Tommy was up there. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, my mind racing. I burst into Tommy's room and found him fast asleep, undisturbed. Then I heard it again. Thump. This time it was coming from the attic. Our attic was small, barely more than a crawl space. We never used it, and I couldn't think of any reason why someone, or something, would be up there. But I couldn't ignore the sound. Gripping the fireplace poker tightly, I climbed the stairs to the attic hatch. "Who's up there?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty house. Silence. I reached up and pulled the hatch cord. The ladder unfolded with a groan. A musty smell wafted down, and I shone a flashlight into the darkness. The attic was empty, just a dusty expanse of the insulation and forgotten boxes. I was about to close the hatch when I noticed something odd. There were footprints in the dust. Bare footprints, leading to the corner of the attic, and they stopped at the wall. My stomach turned as I realized they were too small to belong to an adult, but too large to be Tommy's. Suddenly a sound came from behind me, a soft, wheezing breath. I spun around, my flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. There was nothing there. I slammed the hatch shut, locked it, and didn't sleep a minute until my parents came home. I told them what happened, but they dismissed it as my imagination, chalking it up to an overactive mind. I wanted to believe them, but the fear lingered. Years later, after we moved out of that house, my dad mentioned something that still chills me to this day. He said the house's previous owners left in a hurry, abandoning most of their belongings. When he asked why, the realtor hesitated before admitting that their young son had gone missing. They had found his shoes at the edge of the woods, but no trace of the boy was ever discovered.